All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I want to thank everyone for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. We're happy you're here. My name is Kyle Shagnon. I am the marketing manager here at OpFocus. We're excited to get started with our first ever Ask Me Anything session, this one around elevating your RevOps strategy. Many of you did submit questions when registering, and you're welcome to drop in additional questions into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen as well. We'll try to get to as many questions as time will allow for, but we may not get to all of them. This session will be recorded and a copy will be made available to you in a follow-up email. So with that out of the way, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our experts today. First and foremost is Natalia Kochem. She is the director of the SaaS Growth Advisory Practice here. She's helped our clients meet their growth targets, especially as it relates to business processes in marketing, sales, revenue operations, client success, and customer support. She regularly works with cross-functional teams on the marketing and sales alignment, change management, and implementation of the latest business methodologies such as serious decisions, demand unit waterfall, and account-based marketing. I'd like to also introduce Francisco Ames. He is a marketing technology expert, web developer, and digital marketing executive coach. He's a true expert in all things digital marketing. Our RevOps team has also completed dozens of projects to improve and at times completely overhaul the RevOps strategy of our clients. They know the importance of understanding how teams operate and creating a strategy that works with how you do business. So with that out of the way, I'll go ahead and pass things over to Natalia.
Thanks, Kyle. Perfect. So what I'd love to just quickly highlight is that we've been working with a series of clients in the RevOps space, and I just wanted to show you a couple clients that we've done some really amazing work with. They've been fantastic partners to work with on improving their marketing operations, their revenue operations. One of them is RevOps, and just want to highlight here a couple quick quotes from them where they said that OpFocus helped us envision and deliver the dream state. We wouldn't be where we are today without OpFocus's strategic expertise. So one of the key projects we did with them was a whole demand unit waterfall build, strategic guidance on it, and how to roll it up with their marketing and sales teams, and eventually leveraging it for their client success teams. So just want to highlight that today, a little proof of concept that we are experts in this area, not just myself, but our whole SaaS Growth Advisory team, as well as many of us on the OpFocus side. So with that, I think we can go ahead and stop sharing any screens for now, and we'll just kind of open it up to the first questions if we're good with that, Kyle. Or do you want to just say how this will work out first?
I'll quickly cover just how to ask a question here. Oh, my apologies. All right, so when asking a question, we will unmute you. Natalia will take 5 or 6 minutes to answer your question. Again, we do want to get to as many as possible. You can enter your questions into the chat, or if you did submit them ahead of time, Natalia may call on you and ask you to elaborate on your question a bit further. So with that being said, Natalia, I think we are ready for our first question.
Thanks. Okay. So I'm going to start off one that was asked beforehand, and that is actually coming directly from the landing page for this session before. And that is, what are the latest trends B2B companies are looking towards or implementing for RevOps or marketing ops? And I thought this would be a good question to start the conversation with, and hopefully get some of you to ask your own questions live if you didn't get a chance to post them earlier. But some of the trends that we're seeing for B2B SaaS companies in this space, a key one that comes up from a technical perspective is that they are actually moving away from leads in Salesforce. And when I mean leads, I mean specifically leads versus contacts. It's been a subject of mass debate for a lot of companies. And the reason why they are realizing leads are no longer serving the purpose of the business is that a lot of SaaS companies, B2B SaaS companies, they're focused on those enterprise sales, those big elephants in the room that they want to target. And they're realizing that an account-centric model or focusing on key target accounts is going to better serve them. And one of the things that we know from a Salesforce perspective, we are Salesforce consultants in our foundation, is that leads cannot be associated to accounts. So we're seeing a big trend of companies having the discussion with their sales and marketing teams to say, do we want to make the move away from leads? And if any of you have any questions about that, want me to dive in deeper, feel free to ask. Continuing along those trends, and I have Francisco on the line on this because I'd love for him to dig in a little bit deeper, is this concept that companies are hiring what you may call a marketing engineer, especially as the tech stack grows, especially for marketing and sales, the technologies that are available there, the resources that you may have hired in the past, they're really needing to be more technical. And so one of the questions I wanted to actually precede here for Francisco is just some feedback that you may share of why companies are looking to hire a more technical person on the marketing operations side, or why it's so important to have someone play that role in your experience.
Yeah, I mean, things have changed a lot through the years, and it's mostly digital marketing. No matter what you're doing, there's a big emphasis on the digital part, right? It's all about data. It's really important that part of your team understands data from beginning to end, not only how it applies to marketing, but how it's going to be passed into sales, how it's being collected. There's a lot of nuances from, are we connecting through an app and gathering information that way? How do we connect that to your email automation platform? How do we connect that to your Salesforce? And there's then the other aspect of things where a little bit of coding experience, if it's just for web, really helps a lot, right? You want your emails to look the right way. You want your landing pages to look the right way. Having the talent in-house to edit or create different things that apply to your overall marketing strategy, that's what makes a difference. And that's becoming more important every single day.
I think the technologies are getting so advanced, and people are realizing that they can't just lean on sales being good enough, that they're not digging into their data. One of the things I've witnessed is that when you implement a technology, if sales are really good, people don't tend to spend a lot of time focus on their technical debt or their operational data. But as companies are starting to look to scale, or SaaS companies that are looking to get in more money from private equity, or they're looking to acquire different companies or get acquired, they're realizing that the data is king, the data is gold, and it's putting more of a pressure on sales and marketing to deliver on this data. And so the roles that are needed to understand the data, to make sure the data is accurate, that the technology that you're using is actually serving the business, it's changing. And people, as they begin to dive in, it's calling out some key gaps in the system. And so those technical roles that are getting added to companies are growing, and they're becoming more necessary. So following on to a couple other quick points as far as latest trends for B2B companies that we're seeing is that move to an account-based or an account-centric model, especially as companies are realizing, I don't have to have Salesforce out of the box bog me down. I can customize it. There's new technologies that I can easily implement out there, like Engagio or Lean Data, where I can quickly move away from leads, or I can quickly start to think about, a view of an account-based model. There's a new tech stack out there. I mean, I think it's like hundreds of thousands. It's definitely tens of thousands of technologies out there for marketing and sales right now that you can implement. And a key element that you'll see out there is account-based marketing. So we've been working with a lot of SaaS companies leverage account-based marketing or make a move to an account-centric model. And then the last trend is really improving the conversation and improving alignment with marketing sales, and client success. And it goes back to the technologies are starting to overlap in these key areas, and they're also quite expensive. So as you're trying to justify those technologies, and if marketing's brought into the conversation of saying, okay, I'm no longer focused on just generating leads, generating demand, but I'm actually focused on closing accounts. That's a different metric, especially if companies are moving toward that ABM or that account-centric model. Marketing is being held accountable in a different capacity than it was previously. That is immediately allowing for more of a cross-functional collaboration between marketing and sales. If you have a more mature organization, or you're really starting to establish a client success team, or you're focused on renewals, especially because we're focused on SaaS clients here, marketing is also going to be a key element with client success, as well as sales. And there are key metrics that all three of those functions matter to them. So that's going to be a big trend that we're seeing. And a lot of the clients that are coming to us and asking us for, hey, what are business processes? What's advice that we can give, or strategic guidance that we can give? It's focused on improving that alignment, not just from the technology and the data, but all the way back up to business process, and just being able to have a clear conversation about what are the goals the company wants to do. So great. So that was my first question to just kind of start the conversation, get your thoughts percolating. Just a reminder, you can ask any other questions here live. There were a few other questions that were posed, and so I'm gonna just pull up my sheet here. So I had a question from JAMA Software, and let's see, is Drew on the line? I'm not sure if he is, but if not, I will answer your question nonetheless. So Drew had asked, how many accounts should we designate for an ABM, outbound prospecting, per territory or rep? Can these be added or removed throughout the year? If every account that looks good is a target ABM account, it defeats the purpose of trying to focus on, a key selection. And I think this is a great question. When you're trying to move towards an account-based model, what does that really mean? That's a company-wide initiative to move towards an account-based model. That means that sales is selling from a perspective of trying to close accounts. The majority of the key functional teams, like marketing, sales, product, they're aligning on who are those key accounts that they want to sell to, what products are going to be a good fit. So that's going to help them determine first, what is your ideal client profile? And so as you begin to determine which key accounts you're going to set up in your system and which accounts best fit the products that you have to offer, there is this concept of, well, everybody could be a customer, and we have a known universe of 2,000 accounts. And as people really start to dig into that conversation of first, well, who am I really going to target this year? Can I come up with a list of 200? How might I segment those people? What really are the people that I'm going to close out? It's a different conversation than people saying, well, I have 2,000 people, 2,000 accounts that could be my customer. And so one of the conversations that we talk with our clients is really how to filter to the top those key accounts first from an ideal client fit, and then looking at the business's goals. So from a finance perspective, you're going to need to determine, how much business do you need to close this year? Excuse me. And so from that, you can kind of backfill, well, how many sales reps do you have? And from that, you can determine, well, what is the close rate of those sales reps? If you're not mature enough yet in having that data, you can kind of speculate, and this is where you would come to the table with saying, okay, we're going to start off with allocating 20 key accounts per sales rep. Maybe right now we only have a team of 10 sales reps that are going to be handling these accounts. Some other questions that start to come up is, well, how long is your sales cycle? Can your sales team handle 20 accounts, key accounts at a time? What does that relationship look like? This is where we start to dig into, well, what data is being allocated by the account? What data are you recording off of the sales rep? Are you tracking key conversations? Are you tracking marketing initiatives per account? So you can see that we start to break it down from ideal client fit and really knowing who that key selection of target account should be, as well as the finance side of how many accounts do we need to close to meet our business goals, to then what resources do we have and what's going to be our starting point. The fourth bucket there that I mentioned as well is data. So how are you going to measure and improve? So I would say I can't give you a proper answer of, this is the set number to start with. But I can say if you look at those four components, that's going to start to tee you up first to say, okay, what's a baseline number of accounts that I can allocate per rep, per territory? It is going to depend on your resources, the team that you have, how many people you have as far as your sales team. And then from a marketing perspective, your marketing strategy. So this is, again, the account-based model. What's fantastic about it is that it really does encourage that sales and marketing alignment and those key conversations. So if anything, I think it's about asking the right questions and making sure that you have the right answers so that you can really strategically plan for this upcoming year, and decide, is it on a quarterly basis that I need to change which accounts we're going to be focusing on, which sales reps or what accounts they're going to be focusing on this quarter, or if it's semi-annually or if it's annually. I've typically seen companies do it on an annual basis if they have a long sales cycle. So what I mean by long sales cycle is greater than 9 months. So if you have a sales cycle on average that takes 9+ months, you're not going to rotate out an account to a different sales rep or change them up within the year. You're going to do that at the beginning of the next year or whenever your financial calendar starts. Perfect. So I'm going to ask, can we unmute Jeff? Because Jeff, you're the first live participant asking a question here.
Yep, Jeff, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, you mentioned about moving away from the lead object and just having contacts and accounts. I'm wondering how necessary is that to really have an effective account-based model?
Okay, so this is awesome because I'm actually going to mute you now and ask Mariana, can we unmute you?
Hi,
So let me give.
unmuted.
Okay, perfect. So I noticed that Mariana had pre-registered, and just to give a little bit of a background on the work that we did with Mariana. So Mariana's from a company called Acrolinks. That's a B2B SaaS company. You can give your little spiel about what your company does shortly. But one of the things that I'd love for you to share your feedback, because we've been working with you in some capacity since I think 2017, 2018. So it's so you've definitely have had an evolution. Account-based marketing, I think in 2017 was just becoming popular. So I'm curious if you can share your feedback of, why did you eventually take that move? What was that experience like? And any thoughts that you might want to share with Jeff here on your experience?
Yes, and I suppose that move from the lead record to actually the opportunity record, because that's where we manage our MQLs today, as crazy as that might sound. But yeah, we've been on the ABM journey for 2.5 years now, so we've had a long time to perfect things along the way and change things around. we changed the model from that lead object to the opportunity object for that exact reason that you mentioned earlier, Natalia, and that it was no longer serving the purpose of a B2B sort of enterprise SaaS model. We have a very long sales cycle. We know that at least 7 people are part of the buying process for our deals, and simply having that lead database that does not speak with the contact database and does not speak with the account database and even the opportunity database had become detrimental for us, because we're a small, very, very small team. And before working with OpFocus, I was literally sitting there at late hours trying to figure out the journey of that opportunity. Today, it's a much more seamless process where I know exactly where my lead came from, because as soon as that lead comes, it is automatically converted to an opportunity record. And once that opportunity record becomes a meeting, and it's a successful meeting, we just change it from being an MQL opportunity record to a pipeline opportunity record. And I don't lose leads anymore. And so there are some benefits to it that I think have become important to us. If perhaps we were a bigger team, this wouldn't be so much of an issue, but because we're so lean in how we've built our model, it definitely, to answer Jeff, it was really, really important for us, and I don't see it how we could ever go back to handling leads on the lead object.
I'm curious, so was it a hard move? Did you have to get a lot of just getting buy-in? What was that conversation like to get buy-in that this is the appropriate move for your team? Who did you have to talk to? Who was the hardest person to convince?
Convincing myself that I wanted to go through that was difficult. And I think for about a 4 to 5 month period, it was very, very painful. And to get it right was painful. And there were moments that I was like, why did we decide to go through with this? We have an executive team that really trusts us and the decisions that we have made along the way. It's also important. I've worked with my CMO before, so I think, I have that, he has that confidence, but it was really myself and asking, do I really want to go through this now? Because it is going to be painful. And it was very painful, but looking back at it 2 years later, I can't see it any other way. So much so that sometimes, silly things like when I get approached by an organization, I'm like, do I want to go work for that company? Because they are still using lead object, and I'm not sure I want to go back to that.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm gonna mute you for a little bit, and then I want to bring you back, because what I want to do is break down a few of the things that you just mentioned, just to make sure that everybody here is on the same page. So one of the things that companies are finding is, if you want to successfully do an account-based model, you have a few hurdles if you use Salesforce. So a few things. Leads just show that there's a company. They don't match directly to an account without some extra customization. And so for companies, when they're doing an account-based model, one, you're focused on accounts. So if you've got all these pool of people here sitting in your leads object, maybe your BDR team is following up with each one of them. One of the key gaps or issues that that starts to come up is that a BDR doesn't know, well, I've already got a sales rep working this account with different contacts on that account, and a new lead just came in. And you start to have some misalignment, some questions, some mistakes that you don't want your prospects to know that you have this kind of technical issue. You may have the BDR having one conversation and the sales rep having a different conversation. And so what we've seen, just from a technical fix, is to automatically convert in Salesforce any leads that could match to an existing account. So let's say acme.com, I already have 2 people that are contacts on acme.com, and I just got 4 come from a trade show or from a virtual event. I'm going to automatically convert them and add them as contacts to the account. Okay, so sometimes I get clear buy-in. People tend to understand that from a technical aspect. One of the key hurdles that comes up next is that companies, especially the marketing teams, will say, well, we have a whole lead conversion process. We have, our BDR team supposed to be qualifying leads. So what do I do if I automatically convert these leads to contacts? What is this qualification process? So Mariana kind of referenced it a little bit. Marketing teams are actually using opportunities, the opportunity object in Salesforce, to change how the qualification process is. It's basically creating an early stage opportunity, and you can either manually or in an automated fashion associate these contacts when they've done certain marketing activity automatically to an early stage opportunity. The reason why that's making really good sense for these SaaS companies is they're recognizing that the prospects that they're selling to don't just buy one person. One person doesn't just buy one product. It's that you have a large ticket item. It often involves 3 to 7 people in the buying decision. Marketing has to change their entire approach to say, do I have enough of those people involved in the conversation? And so they're recognizing one lead does not equal one opportunity. It's like 5 leads could equal one sales opportunity. So the more that I can get this group of people populated on an early stage opportunity, and we'll call it a marketing opportunity. This is also the foundation of Serious Decisions Demand Unit Waterfall. They're recognizing I can have a different conversation. I can have a different marketing strategy for this group of people. So breaking that down, technology-wise, you're auto-converting leads to contacts early on. You are potentially creating early stage opportunities, and you're adding this collective group of people, if it makes sense to your business, to the opportunity. And then you're having some sort of qualification, earlier qualification process on an opportunity. Maybe it's stage 0. Maybe you're using the demand unit waterfall frameworks of an engaged account, an engaged opportunity, or you're calling it a pre-op. But then it eventually will convert to a sales opportunity, and you will advance it from, say, a BDR team to your account executive. So that just kind of breaks down that aspect. Mariana, to unmute you, because I do know that we had multiple conversations. I think when we first got started with you, you were using leads. And then I think it was a year later that maybe after a few events that you might have attended or conversations you and I might have had, you bought in to this concept. What were the results? So what was the outcome of making this change? If you can give an extra incentive to these people of why it's all worth it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not going to create pipeline for you, right? Yeah, at the end of the day, we're still bringing in a lot of pipeline through account-based tactics. But what I can say that it has done for us is sort of this no leads left behind mentality. We don't have that anymore. We used to be worried about that. We used to be concerned that deals were created and marketing wasn't getting the credit because we didn't have the history associated with that account. Those have been the primary benefits of doing something like this. And again, going back to what I said earlier, us being a very lean team and not having the resources to bring in, say, an attribution technology, this has helped us get there a little bit without having to pay for yet another MarTech. And also to be able to report on things just a little bit easier.
Yeah. I'm curious, since I have you here, would you be willing to share some of the technologies that you're a fan of, that you've discovered, that you might recommend to anybody doing an account-based model besides Salesforce?
Yeah, I think Engagio is one that we started using about a year and a half ago. And the reason why we we were ready for Engagio after having been doing ABM for quite some time, because we are able to report on account engagement at that account level, right? So if each one of my account reps have each about 60 accounts, and that's a lot, and we're kind of dividing and conquering. So the BDRs kind of take, we call it the swarm. So BDRs take a portion of it, sales reps take another portion of it, and then marketing takes another portion of it. And together we swarm those accounts. And as we start to see engagement through Engagio, we will do tactics like direct mail, or invite them to a more high touch type of event, virtually these days, of course. So that has been really detrimental. It's been great for us to have. What is super cool about Engagio is that we started to do these sort of baseline reporting. So every month I send my account rep a report that shows, here's out of your 60 accounts, here's how many are showing engagement, versus last month. Last month, we only had 30% of your accounts showing engagement. This month, we've been able to increase that by another 5%. And slowly every month, we're able to benchmark against ourselves and seeing how we've been able to move the needle inside those accounts.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to mute you again. Thank you so much for sharing that with the group. I know I will put it this way, working with clients, working with a lot of the members of my team, Kyle has positioned me as an expert, but one of the things is that I learned so much working with our clients, because it's always a unique, potentially unique business, but there's always nuances, but then there's similarities that we can always leverage for each other. And one of the core elements with us is that we're really focused on SaaS B2B businesses. So one of the things I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Mariana was saying is metrics. So a question that came up was talking about, let me just make sure that I pull it up here. What is the best practice about lead source when an opportunity is typically influenced by more than one source? So this kind of tees into a conversation of what, if you're going to be doing an account-based model, if you're going to be using, if you're following these latest trends that marketing and sales are implementing, there's some old ways of tracking things. And I think Mariana, she's definitely experienced it in our conversations. There's this concept, there's this kind of grandfathered in field called lead source. And it really depends on a few factors if you're really going to need lead source anymore. And the reason why I say that, a lot of companies will spend time honing in and really trying to get lead source populated right, only to realize that they have a long sales cycle and lead source only tells them one piece of the puzzle. And really what they want to track is what were all the engagement points that led to this opportunity eventually close winning. And so what I will recommend there is that whenever we're talking about source or most recent source, I like to recommend what is the end goal in mind first before you realize, what changes you're going to make to your technology, to your business process, how you're going to actually change anything in your system. The reason why is this. Marketing automation platforms often have their own way of populating lead source. If you ever try to pull a report in Salesforce, trying to see, what were all the sources that someone came in from, it could be up to 50 different sources. And when I start to dig in with clients and their key goal, when I ask them, what's your key outcome that you want in tracking this information, is they want to know where they're going to spend their budget for next year in their planning. And so that's kind of a different conversation, because when you start to look at lead source and you have all this detail and it's all over the place, it's hard to really recognize what are the key action steps that we want to focus on. Is source really as important that they came from Bing or Yahoo, or that they came from certain display ads? Or is it that you maybe want to just group and categorize, kind of maybe create a lead source category to say, this is how I first acquired this lead? The other thing is that a lot of these companies are also leveraging Zoom Info and Discover.org, or they are having or LinkedIn Navigator. Yes, it's helpful to find that this person first came in from one of these tools, because you can then, validate your budget. But that is just one key point. When you have a long sales cycle, I maybe want to know what was the last driving marketing effort that really pushed that person over the line, or that group of people. Again, we're talking potentially about multiple people that could be impacting a deal. What were those marketing initiatives that really helped to create the opportunity? And that's where attribution tools is a better model that I've been seeing companies trend to. If you don't want to go ahead and buy, a third-party attribution tool, just really honing in on how you're using Salesforce campaigns. It's an out-of-the-box object. You can leverage it. You can set up something like campaign influence, not to get too technical in the weeds here, but there are some best practices that a lot of companies aren't using when it comes to Salesforce campaigns. And that's actually where I'd be spending more time and effort to see what are all the Salesforce campaigns, what are all the campaign types, what are all the marketing initiatives that people are getting associated to. And what's fantastic about Salesforce campaigns is you can have leads and contacts associated to them, and you can have opportunities associated to them. So Salesforce campaigns are kind of this hub in allowing marketing and sales to have a key conversation, because it allows you to see how many opportunities were influenced by this Salesforce campaign, or how many opportunities were won by this particular Salesforce campaign. I can then roll up a report and say, okay, group all my campaigns by campaign type. If I wanted to say like all my advertising campaigns, how many ops did I win out of that? That's what I tend to care about more than lead source. I'll take it a step back and totally contradict myself for a sec here. If you have a very short sales cycle, let's say it's 30 days, I could see lead source having more of an impact. So if you, especially if you do have that one-to-one relationship, one lead does equal one opportunity, then I would spend time on both. I would spend time on, categorizing your lead source so that it's very reportable, it's easy to make action steps, but that also you're also tracking Salesforce campaigns, just in case there are, say, 2 or 3 marketing initiatives that help to move that or advance that lead to a contact, to an opportunity, and to the finish line. Okay, fantastic. Let's see if there's any questions that have come up. Let me go here for a quick sec. So I do want to talk a little bit about some strategies that people were asking, how does sales get involved in implementing account-based strategies? What do the processes look like? And I think, Kyle, this would be a great time to show that the key business process checklist, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen for a quick sec.
Sure.
So I mentioned that one of the trends that B2B companies is having increased alignment on sales and marketing, client success. Something that we've really developed as far as a SaaS Growth Advisory Practice is really laying out what are the key elements of a SaaS company, what are the key functional areas for a SaaS business lifecycle as it pertains really to how the customer moves through your SaaS company and interacts with the key departments of your SaaS company. So we've got, a customer interacts with marketing, or a prospect interacts with marketing, they interact with sales, they then hopefully win the deal, and then you have to involve contracting and legal and finance. And as you start to onboard that prospect, now a customer, you're dealing with professional services. When you start to talk about renewals, you're dealing with client success, or if you're dealing with expansion and upsells, that client success team is talking to those customers. And then if there are any issues, customer service getting involved. So these are we've just highlighted quickly some of the key functional areas of a SaaS business. And then at the bottom, we have this foundational element. And we call this out because when you're talking about strategy, strategic planning, what are tips and tricks to improve and elevate your RevOps, you always want to make sure that you are measuring and monitoring and improving. And the way to do that is to make sure that your foundations for your SaaS company are there. So really understanding your tech stack, you have a clear plan for analytics and reporting, and probably most importantly, and a lot of companies don't tend to do this until maybe it's a little too late, or they're just realizing they need to be more mature, is governance. So when a client comes to us and says, okay, how can I improve my sales and marketing alignment? How can I make sure that we're thinking about the right steps to scale? This is a great tool. In part, we've highlighted some of the most common business processes per functional area to say this, in an ideal world, a SaaS company would have all these elements well documented, really bought in by the key functional areas. So when I think about how can I improve sales and marketing alignment, one quick thing is to say, you know, have I had a conversation, marketing and sales, on our ideal client profile? Has client success been involved in that? Do we agree that we have a clear target market that we're going to pursue? Kind of step one. Then when marketing needs to take a person, convert them to a leader contact, do we have some sort of conversation about sales handoff and then what's supposed to be happening there, prospecting? So I bring this up more to say, hey, if any of you see any of these topics here that you want to drill into, ask a few more questions, because I think we have about 5 minutes before we have to start wrapping up. Kyle will talk about this a little later, if you want to spend time with me, happy to go one-on-one with any of you on this conversation of how to use a tool like this. Think about, you know, what are the business processes you have in place or that you don't have in place, recognizing it's probably something that you should have in place in order to allow your business to scale. This is a great tool that we've put together just to highlight some of those key business practices. A couple other ones that we recommend to clients to spend time on is understanding their customer lifecycle journey as it relates to these key functional areas. So just starting to map out, someone comes in, what data are we collecting? What happens to that person once they get into our system? What are the SLAs? What are the service level agreements that's supposed to happen? Is that our BDR team following up with them? Or is that even marketing's team that it's really their responsibility to pre-qualify those people? And again, do we have our system aligning that we're grouping those people automatically to the account, or creating them as an opportunity so that when we do hand it off to someone on our sales or BDR team, they are looking at the collective group of people versus just one lead that, like Mariana had said, might be left behind because we have a team focused on accounts versus a team looking at leads. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I will have this as a potential. I'm thinking about this with our marketing team, potentially sending this tool out. If you guys want to get a copy of this, just to take back and think about how to improve and elevate the conversation on alignment. For this call, a lot of that conversation is really on marketing and sales, but really it spans the spectrum here. So let me see. There's one more question. Kyle, would you mind sharing? I can't see your question. I might have missed it. And we can also stop sharing the screen if that's necessary. And you may need to unmute.
Sorry about that. I think Kelly had a question, I believe.
Kelly, you're up. Caller number 11. So the question, I'll just read for you. So the question is, this chart is really interesting. Can you share a copy after the meeting? Glad to ask. So yes, we can. I think Kyle will go into the specifics of how, and we can begin to talk about that. I am seeing some people on here that didn't ask any questions. Wondering, for example, Nick, do you have any questions? I know some people. I'll put it this way: this world, this industry is a humbling industry because there's a lot of information to stay on top of. The industry is constantly changing, so no questions are dumb. Even if you want to bring it back to something that you might consider more basic or whatnot, you'd be surprised how nuanced those questions and answers can be. So if there's any other questions that someone might want to ask here, feel free. I also don't have to call you out. You can be anonymous. But I would say this is, so Nick, you're like, I don't even know where to start. Well, let's see here. Of the topics that I brought up, so we talked about, just to recap, the latest trends, hiring more technical resources on your team, or maybe engaging with consultants, realizing that there's a gap in your team, a technical resource that you may need. That's one. So if anybody has any questions about, how do you begin to assess whether you have a gap, or you need to hire a new resource, or if you got the right players on the bus, that's always a hard conversation to have. I would say finding the right resources in this space, it's a tough market. Well, I would say I'm going to pre-COVID. I'm not quite sure how the world is just yet, but in the hiring world, if you're looking to hire resources from, a new marketing engineer or marketing operations, or hire a consultant, how do you assess whether they're the right ones? There's a few factors. One, I would say an eagerness to learn, an eagerness to be humble is one aspect if you don't have experts that you already have in your team, or experts that you can trust. So if you want to spend the time investing in someone to learn and train, one thing I would recommend is you can work with us, and we do love to teach our clients how to fish. Excuse me. The other thing too is that there are a lot of resources available online. Excuse me. So for example, if you're trying to get some basics in place, having your team go through certifications. I do love Salesforce's certifications because it's kind of like going back to college for a quick sec. A very, just enforcing you to learn the basics and the core elements, and then taking it from there to how to apply that to your business. Marketo, Pardot, HubSpot, they also have certifications. So I will say certifications aren't the end all be all to judge whether someone is going to be the right fit for your company, but it's a good starting point. It's at least knowing that they can have a conversation, talk about the key functionality. That, pairing it with someone who can think strategically about the goal of the business. So if you're looking to hire someone for marketing operations, someone that can help you break down where you want to go and how the technology can serve that purpose is going to be key. What else did we talk about? We talked about the trend of moving away from leads to contacts. Mariana brought up some great points, just her experience there, how also that conversation can take a couple years to be fully bought into. But one of the key elements there is why are companies making that move? And often it's because the technology doesn't match the way that the sales team sells or the marketing team needs to market. And it's not matching the way the business is trying to target those key target accounts. So it can be a lengthy conversation. There are also some ways to do some quick wins, some third-party tools to help you get there, a few different strategies. So we're happy to guide you, spend some time talking to that through you, with you. So Kelly asks, how quickly is reasonable to bring in new MarTech when looking to onboard several tools? There are a few new techs we'd like to bring in, upgrading our marketing automation platform, ABM, sales contact data. I'm wondering if we should do things right in a row at the same time, or give a few months between. Okay, great question. And it taps into a philosophical debate, kind of a motto of OpFocus. That said, we are flexible and we'll work with our clients, but one of the things that we like to focus, at least on the SaaS Growth Advisory Practice, is focus on business process before purchasing a new tool. One of the things that we've seen is that some companies tend to lean on the tool to solve all their problems first, before recognizing what are the outcomes that they want to implement, what is the data that they need, how are they going to use that data, how is it going to serve the business. So what I would say, whenever it comes to adding a new technology to your tool, what I would say is a key step is making sure that the teams that would be benefiting from that tool are aligned on the outcomes and the business process that are going to be impacted by that tool. Often you have a few stakeholders making that purchasing decision, or you may have an executive stakeholder that is saying, you know, that's it, I hate Pardot, I'm switching to Marketo, or I hate HubSpot and I'm switching to Pardot, or you know, we're just making the move over here, or go buy this other tool, I'm done with this conversation. I've seen it quite a bit, and what I have seen as far as what allows you to be successful in implementing those tools is to, at some point, think strategically about the business process, how you're going to leverage it, and how it's going to work within your system. That said, there's a few exercises beforehand, and I mentioned in that checklist, that talking about, say, your customer lifecycle, understanding the flow of how a prospect can flow, and what teams need to be involved from your company's perspective in advancing that prospect to a customer and making sure that they're a fantastic advocate of your product. A couple other questions here, because I think we do have to start to wrap up. How could we begin to plan for a trial run for an ABM program? Say targeting a small subset of our target marketing with an ABM strategy or existing strategy. Is this even possible, or do we jump in all at once? I love this. So I have seen clients do a pilot program. They've started with a handful of accounts that it's, you know, those elephants that they want to target, and they get the marketing, sales, and client success teams involved in a conversation. They're having an account planning meeting, talking about how are they going to pursue them, and leveraging what ended up working, and rolling those out, that pilot program, the success of the pilot program, to the rest of, say, target accounts. So there's a few ways, technology-wise, that you can implement that, so that you can say, I want to start to work the account, work all the contacts I need at an account. That's not too hard, but I think in part, it's one of the hardest things is really getting all the people in your team in a room, or virtually in a room, to have a discussion about how you're going to target those key accounts, those pilot accounts. Perfect. I'm seeing Kyle, is there any? Okay, I'm just going to read a tagline from Mariana here. She said, the CMS alignment trend has been huge for us as well. Customer retention is the new acquisition. I love that. I've seen that a lot of places. Customer retention is the new acquisition. And she says, our marketing team has taken on a hands-on approach with retention campaigns. So what's really vital about retention is that you need to know who you sold to. You need to have them tracked in your system. You need to know what they bought. And that is about data. That's about tracking and making sure that you have that visibility, and that when it comes to your teams following up and actually putting together those retention strategies, you have the key data points for those customers, and you have the right marketing, sales, client success strategy to retain those customers. So again, just talking about alignment, talking about data, and some best practices and business process there. So that was awesome. I'm going to pass it over to Kyle now to kind of wrap things up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Francisco. This is extremely helpful, and I'm really glad we were able to get to as many questions as we were able to. If you did enjoy this session, we do have a number of additional ways to learn coming up. Sorry about that. So we have Dashboard Dojo, which is a new webinar series our CEO, David Carnes, is putting on. That's coming up on September 9th. We also have integrating your SaaS product with Salesforce. That's going to be our next AMA taking place on September 17th with Jason Curry, our Director of Development. And then we also have 2 courses coming up for folks that want to get a bit more proficient at using Salesforce. One is around admin essentials, great for preparing for the admin exam. And the other is specifically around reports and dashboards, which really takes a deep dive into how those can uncover the metrics that will really help you drive operational growth. As Natalia did mention, she is open to taking a 1-hour assessment with anyone interested to go ahead and look at your ABM readiness. So feel free to reach out to us to schedule that, and we'll also have an offer in the follow-up email that will be coming out shortly. So with that being said, I wanted to go ahead and once again thank all of you for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. I'm sure you all have extremely busy schedules, but I hope you did learn something, and we love to have you. Please join us for some more upcoming events as well. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.